All right, can everybody hear me? Okay, good. All right, well, we're gonna go ahead. I got 6:30 on my clock, so we're gonna go ahead and get this Board of Education meeting started. I'd like to welcome everyone out to the July 13th, 2020 meeting via Zoom. With the recent county restrictions on gatherings of over 45, we thought this was the best way to allow the most people to see what was going on at this meeting, so we went with Zoom. So our first item on the agenda today is going to be our call to order roll call with our flag salute. And we should have it coming up, hopefully on the screen here. There we go, maybe. Okay, so if everyone please stand. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next up on our agenda, we have our adoption of the agenda.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion from Andy and a second from Mark. All those in favor? Let me just find everybody here, 6-0. Okay, next up under presentations, we have our Board of Education candidates with Heather Bahati.
Hi, good evening. Heather Bohati, Superintendent. Tonight, we have on the agenda our Board of Education candidates. As you know, with our resignation from Matt Hogue, we had a vacancy. And with that, we had posted a timeline and process, and we sought out applications, and we received a great response for the applications for this position. As outlined on your timeline and process, tonight we will give the candidates 3 minutes to be able to respond to the following question: what would you like to see as priorities of the Board of Education of Derby Public Schools over the next 3 to 5 years? I will point out on the screen, we do have our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Becky Mader. She will actually keep time so of the 3 minutes. So if you are one of the candidates that's on here tonight, you are welcome to, as you have the gallery view potentially on your screen there, to be able to see that time, so you're within those time frames. So at this time, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Kippenberger, President, to proceed with hearing from the candidates.
Okay, let's see, I don't know which order, is there a particular order, Heather, that you want to go in, or? I think you're muted.
I apologize for that.
Okay.
If you want to just go alphabetical by last name, I think that would be a consideration, to be fair about that.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
the
let's do that.
first one would be Mr. Atkinson.
This is when I never like having an A for a last name. I assume you all can hear me. Okay. My name's Don Atkinson, live at 2306 North Sawgrass Circle here in Derby. My vision for priorities for the board for the next 3 to 5 years. First one is an obvious one, and trying to start up the school buildings again this fall. There's a lot of news going around. I was watching things on the news tonight about Wichita and Goddard. And I know the district has a group that's looking into this, but I see the district's going to have to use guidance from not only the state, but also the CDC, consulting with some areas, groups, and just trying to get a handle on just where we're going to go this fall to get the kids back into school. We shouldn't rush into any decisions because the parents and the students really need to have some knowledge as soon as possible to know what's going to happen this fall. And the concerns I have is, just looking at what's going on in the community. We have mask requirements now. There's signs posted all over buildings and you still see people ignoring them. I see a lot of youth that are not wearing masks in buildings and things. And that does concern me, having been in the buildings, especially at the secondary level, looking at, passing periods, and you got kids, all over each other during those times. So there's going to be a lot of things that are going to have to be addressed. Another priority is I think there needs to be some review of the finances, not only in the event that if the state has to make reductions during the year because of revenue shortfalls, the district needs to be in a position to address those. There needs to be some priorities for putting more money into the classrooms. That's always a concern when you're looking at school finance. Like to see less reliance on teachers having to buy their own supplies, and seeing parent groups at the various elementary schools and at the secondary level doing fundraisers just to put classroom supplies and help out the teachers in that area. I was looking at some historical numbers, looking at the general and supplemental general funds. 2015-16 school year, 66% of those two funds went into instruction. In the 1920 adopted budget, that percentage was down to 60%. Administrative costs have increased over that time. And I know there's always been a lot of concern in the legislature as to where state funds are being spent. They've always had this target of 65% going into instruction, and they don't really define how that's going to work, but there's a lot of issues there. That's 3 minutes already.
All right, Don, thanks for that. Next up, we are going to have Tara Canfield.
So over the next 5 years, I see the board needing to focus on the following initiatives. Number one, how can the district enhance its one-to-one device initiative and build an infrastructure that prepares us for future pandemics and other severe disruptions? This plan will need to provide equal access for all students with regards to curriculum and resources, and it will need to prepare and train faculty and staff for that new environment. Overall, the board needs to examine what is happening right now with the pandemic and what will happen in the next school year, and how can they identify new opportunities that have emerged for educating our students. Number two, Derby needs to build stronger partnerships with higher education and industry. This will allow us to create workforce and post-secondary education pathways and train students to be work or college ready at the time of graduation. Additionally, the workforce continues to experience urgent needs for female and minorities in STEM fields. So how can the Derby district contribute to that growing need with their future graduates? Number three, we need to focus on competency-based learning and math and English literacy skills. I can tell you, I'm from higher education, and we are seeing alarming numbers of students who can not place into or persist in college level English or math courses. This makes them take developmental ed courses, which are non-transferable. Derby students are not immune to this, and it is a process that needs to be strengthened. Number four, Derby needs to continue to strengthen mental health initiatives for all grades. We are seeing an increase in mental health issues and suicides within the K through 12 and college populations. We have to tackle the problems that are arising from social media, bullying, economic disparities, and other struggles. Safety, in my opinion, whether physical or mental, should be a priority. Number five, Derby needs to continue to build programs that break down barriers to high school success for students of lower socioeconomic, ESOL, minority, and special ed statuses. And number six, in higher education, I can tell you that fewer students are wanting to become teachers. We have a teacher shortage going on in our country. It is making it difficult for the districts to find qualified faculty. And then once they get them in the doors, it's even harder to retain them. So how can Derby continue to attract qualified faculty and be able to fill openings in an expeditious manner? And lastly, Derby has to continue to be proactive in building the great infrastructure that we already have. In summary, the Derby district is, in my opinion, the strongest district in Sedgwick County. I am aware, however, that there are many opportunities for growth, and I hope I can be a part of that process in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Next up, we have Rick Coleman.
Hi guys, Rick Coleman, 1003 East Madison here in Derby. For me, the direction the board should be is to continuously improve day by day. The board's priorities should be set by the community's priorities for our schools. Number one, obviously, with the return to education with the current COVID crisis, what will school look like? How many students will actually return to the classroom? And what does that look like? What are some scenarios that make sense that are attainable? We need to make effective policies that are stringent enough to protect the staff and students, but also flexible enough to allow different options for our families. Once that obstacle is conquered, we still have 2 years left on the current 5-year strategic plan with year 4 and 5 goals to look at. And I'll just go through a few of those. Communications, we've come a long way in the last 3 years. Now I can see a need to focus on involvement. I mean, we can publish all the information on the district, but if no one is reading it or understands it, it's a waste of district resources and the community's time. Strengthening academic achievement outcomes, all comes down to the planning that goes into students' individual plan of study. We need to start earlier on college and career readiness and look at these in middle school. During the 2017 graduation ceremony, we had around 20 students that graduated high school already with their associate's degree. I challenged Mr. Hamlin at that time to double that with the class of 2021, so we'll see what that goal comes out to. Students need to have goals, make commitment to those goals so that after graduation, there is already a plan of action for what's next, whether that be college, trade school, or military. We need to follow through in making sure that the hurdles in their way are removed to help them be successful in accomplishing these goals. Personnel should always be and continue to be a top priority of the district. These are the front lines, people in the trenches, spending countless hours to ensure that the district's vision, every student, every day, preparing for the future, is a reality. We need policies that don't punish our staff and teachers for thinking outside the box and conveying education to students. Every student learns differently. We need to capture successes and celebrate those at a district level and share those best practices to make others' jobs easier. We need to empower people to succeed, and when they hit the wall, to make them either move it or go around it. Our personnel need the board to provide clear direction and effective support to complete their jobs. We also must stay competitive in our wages. It's hard to keep quality employees when they can go to surrounding schools and get a 25 to 30% increase in pay and benefits. If you take care of your people, they'll take care of you. Infrastructure too is a big priority for the district. After all, it's the biggest reason we had to do the sizable bond 2 years ago. We must maintain that we already had a solid plans to refresh our facilities built into the budget to protect those assets. If we continually do repairs and not put them off, we can avoid the pitfalls that we've experienced in the past. We have to plan for this, or we'll continually have to go to the community bond after bond.
All right, Rick, thanks for that. Next up, we're going to go to Robin Folkerts. Robin, I think you're muted still.
Thank you for that.
Yep.
I am Robin Folkerts. I believe there are several priorities for the Board of Education over the next 3 to 5 years. The first would be to successfully bring the bond issue to its completion. This has been a tremendous undertaking with all the construction and renovations. It's also been a great source of community pride, and the board will need to ensure that the continued updates and schedules and transitions are carried out smoothly and seamlessly throughout the remainder of that project. A second issue I see is that of the current and post-COVID pandemic. While it will not last forever, we will live with the aftermath for quite some time. With the online learning environment that was implemented last spring, I saw teachers stretch and grow beyond their imagination. They responded with new innovations, learned to use new tools, and teach in different ways. And with the state's plan for school restructuring and redesign, how will our schools adapt and use what we have learned to help us move forward in a model where we can truly meet individual needs? The next issue would include our new alternative learning program. How are we going to maximize our career and technical education offerings, online courses, community service opportunities, and internships to meet the needs of the students who require that alternative learning setting? The district has dedicated numerous resources to this new program, and I see this as a priority of the board to see it through. And then finally, as we enter year 4 of the strategic plan, it'll soon be a priority of the board to reflect upon the results of that current plan and design a new one to continue that important work that has been accomplished. This will possibly be the most important task for the board, as it will guide the district's direction for the future of our students. Clearly, there are many other important issues facing the board on a regular basis, including the most urgent one of starting school in the fall. These are just a few of the things that come to mind as I look to the future of Derby schools. And I want to thank you for that opportunity to share my thoughts with you this evening.
All right, thank you, Robin. Next up, we'll go to Adam Johnson.
Thanks for the opportunity, guys. My biggest concern, obviously, right now is with the return to schools during this COVID pandemic and how that's going to look as it comes to fruition. I have 2 students in the district right now, and one starting at a new school, starting in middle school. So for me, it's critically important that they are, learning to the best of the abilities of the teachers and the rest of the staff. So then, of course, budgets are always going to be one of the big priorities going forward, and I'd like to make sure that we maintain what we have in place and what is set for the future, while still being budget conscious and making sure that we're not dipping in too deep. So, and then lastly, I think the other stuff that's in the news right now with inclusion and all that, I think that is something that is going to come to the forefront in the next few years as well, and would like to see some initiatives and stuff set forth that we can make sure that we're addressing those needs of students and of teachers and staff. So and that's where I'm at right now.
All right, thanks, Adam. Next up, we'll go to Tammy Portella.
Hello. So I wanted to go ahead and touch on the fact that I think that we all agree that COVID is a major initiative that we all are going to have to deal with school coming in this fall. I'm a huge supporter of getting kids back into school, but also a supporter of a hybrid model, and then also, at-home alternatives for those that feel that that's where their children will learn best. From my perspective on the getting them back into school for at least part of the time comes from the perspective of being a single full-time parent. Unexpectedly, my child was left at home alone, as I still had to work for 9+ hours a day, and so it did take a toll on her mental health. So we also didn't have anyone to check in on her during the day, so it was kind of a surprise when I got a notice 4 weeks in that she hadn't been participating. So that took us down a different route. And so I think that looking at how we come back into the schools is important from a complete comprehensive perspective from all home styles, not just the 2-parent, potentially, even one at home full time. Also, what I feel that is very important to the District of Derby is diversity. While I'm sure that every single board member comes to the board with diversity in their experience and backgrounds, it is with the current events of racial and cultural diversity that we, as a Hispanic household in the district, of being about 22%, don't feel adequately represented. And so I would like to see a greater emphasis put on that diversity, because even though your entire student body population is only about, I believe that it was about 22% Hispanic, it's less than that African American. I feel that those are voices that are not completely being heard if we want to make decisions on a comprehensive, all-inclusive basis. And so basically for the COVID and the diversity issues, we need to make sure that these children are coming to us from a healthy mental perspective with both of those before they can ever even try to gain any academic knowledge. I feel that the budget, curriculum, graduation, those are all underlying things in the board's DNA. But I feel that we also need to start to pay attention to those threads that comprise that DNA. So I'll be done 30 seconds early. If you have any questions, please let me know.
All right, thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Christina Witten.
Hi, guys. Obviously, as it's been stated before, the COVID situation is probably the #1 priority right now. My big thing is, safety first. My daughter is severely asthmatic, so that puts her in kind of a high risk population. I'm hoping we can come up with some options that at least get them into school part-time, but still keep the environment safe and protect especially kids like that and the staff and teachers that also are at high risk. I think we need to make sure that we don't lose any ground with these kids. I think we've probably already lost some just based on my experience with my 3rd and 4th grader last year. I don't think they were getting anywhere near out of the education process what they usually do. And that wasn't at any fault of their teachers. They both had great teachers that did really well considering, how quickly they had to put together plans. Also, this may extend into the next few years. We may, have problems that we have to deal with. These kids may get behind and not catch up in 1 year. So we may need to keep an eye on that sort of thing. The second big thing I think is staff retention. I definitely notice a difference with my students, my kids, which teachers have the biggest impact on them, both socially and academically. If they're doing well socially, they tend to thrive more academically, I've noticed. So, and I've seen some of their best teachers leave the district in the last few years. So that's kind of concerning to me that we might be losing some really great teachers. So I'd kind of like to look at what's causing that. Another thing that I'd like to see us improve on is our graduation metrics, not just the rate of graduation for seniors, but also, are they college ready? Are we filling the technical needs in our city? I work at Spirit. And so when we've had to ramp up production, it's really hard to get mechanics and people that are even interested in those kind of jobs, even if we train them. So it'd be nice if we started doing some of that in high school for people that want to go that route. Facilities, I think the board's done a really great job. The facility changes that I've seen going up, I live in Stone Creek, so we've been watching the new school get built, but even at Derby Hills, I've noticed some of the changes you guys are making. I think it looks all very well thought out, and I think you're setting things up for success in the future. But like it was mentioned by one of the other candidates, that we need to keep an eye on things and make sure that we're maintaining those facilities and that we don't get ourselves in a pickle like we did before. Technology, I want to, address whether or not we're getting the right kind of technology in the classes. Are these technological opportunities that are actually going to help them in the real world? Or are we just sitting them on computers? I want to make sure that we're actually putting the right kind of technology in the classroom. Also, it's been mentioned with some of the other candidates, inclusion, focus on anti-bullying and diversity training.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Christina. And I think that wraps up all of our candidates with the initial question. Now we have 10 more questions. No, I'm just kidding. But thanks again. There's a lot of great priorities and points were made there. So we'll have a lot to think about over the next course of this meeting. And I know it's never easy to answer those things in public like that, but we will be getting back to you all shortly. So just sit tight here for a little bit. Thanks again. And now we're going to move on to our routine action with our approval of the minutes for the June 22nd, 2020 regular meetings.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Matthew and a second by Tina. All those in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Okay, next is the June 30, 2020 year-end transfers.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion by Matthew, second by Andy. All those in favor? And that's 6-0. And next up, we have our citizens and community presentations before the board. With first up is DNEA with Joel Addis.
Good evening. Joel Addis, special education teacher at El Paso Elementary and president of DNEA. I'm excited to be able to share with you some updates from our association this evening. First, a little background knowledge. KNEA uses a structure called the Pyramid of Power to determine the effectiveness of its local associations. A large part of that metric is member participation. The South Central Uniserve District held a contest over the last school year to measure member participation in its locals. DNEA tied for first place out of the 15 locals in our Uniserve. I'd just like to take a moment and thank our active and involved members, because without that recognition wouldn't have been possible. And excitingly, DNEA will receive $100 in recognition of this, and the executive board will be able to meet to discuss how to utilize that to best meet the needs of our members. I also want just to provide an update on the themes that we discussed at the NEARA last week. The first theme that we really hit on was racial and social justice. And NEA's ongoing goal in that area is the systematic fair treatment of people of all races that result in equitable opportunities and outcomes for everyone. We celebrate and acknowledge our diversities. We address oppression and discrimination head on, and then we take positive actions to eliminate them once we have addressed them. We were able to hear from Vice President Joe Biden as he is seeking our national organization's endorsement. We talked about COVID-19 response, and NEA's guidance on reopening school buildings is rooted in 4 basic principles. First, health and safety of all is fundamental. Second, the voices and expertise of education professionals should be front and center as part of both the decision-making process and the implementation of those decisions. Third, access to protective equipment and then the ability to disinfect areas is critical. And finally, that we must lead with equity during this time. Ultimately, NEA believes that the health and safety of our students, families, and educators must be the primary driver of when it is safe to reopen school buildings in each community. To this end, the NEA has designated $5.5 million in grant funding for state and local affiliates to specifically advance recovery related to the COVID-19 pandemic, with some flexibility to address areas of the highest need. Finally, and this was probably the part that was most meaningful for me, we were able to hear some inspiring stories from educators, parents, and students about how teachers and their colleagues across the country have been stepping up to the front line of this crisis to provide hope and change their students' worlds for the better in times of uncertainty. The message is summed up basically in 3 sentences. You are brave, you are courageous, and you are amazing. Now, this was directed to the delegates at the RA, but it's a universal sentiment. They apply to anyone who does the critical work to provide meaningful educational experiences to our students, as well as those who volunteer their time to the same cause. Thank you, and I would now stand for any questions.
Okay, is there any questions or comments? All right, I'm not seeing any. All right, thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have our patrons, and I don't think any were signed up, so we will move on past that one to our consent agenda. And we do have quite a list here, so I'm going to go ahead and motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by me and a second by Matthew, I believe.
Yes.
Were there any questions or comments about any of those consent items before we vote? Nope, not seeing any. Okay, all those in favor? 6-0. Okay, next we're going to move on to our reports. Next up is item 6A, and after communications report with Katie Carlson.
Hey everyone, Katie Carlson, Director of Communications. So I'm going to provide our first communications report for this new school year. So first, I'm going to just provide a few brief highlights of what we've been up to this summer. Summer is always a busy time, but the summer has been interesting as we're trying to wrap up a previous school year, prepare for the next with many unknowns, and then just a whole lot of COVID-19 thrown into the mix there. So we have been, I feel like, busier than ever. We always are updating new information, rolling over new content on the website, preparing new publications. So tonight I had planned when we were in person to make sure that you guys had some of the publications, but you guys likely received this in the mail. This is our annual enrollment update newsletter. This is one of 2 publications that we send each year to all USD 260 residents. So that's always a good publication. This one's focused on enrollment, but the other one that we typically do in the spring is always a great time to make sure that all of our community stakeholders know what's going on at Derby Public Schools, not just our families. Another publication that took a lot of time, but that we were really proud of, and you guys may have seen, is this Pleasant View memory book. And this book actually captured all of the artwork that was done in the schools for the bicentennial back in '76. We knew that the artwork and mosaics were really awesome in the school and were really important to many community members. So we wanted to be sure to capture that, and something that we did, we found a really affordable way to do that and make sure that we were able to provide that to all students and staff and every community member that came to the open house a few weeks ago. We also know that a lot of people weren't able to attend that, so we still have copies of that if anyone in our community would like a copy of that. So we made sure that we were able to provide those to the community. So that was another exciting project there. One of the other favorite items that we did this summer was our retirement reception, which is always a huge deal. Celebrating our great staff that spent many years in the district was not able to be held due to the stay-at-home order, but we found a way to make that really special for our retirees this year. And there was a group of us that caravanned around. That way we were all in our own cars. We were able to socially distance and porch deliver items and greet people and say a final kind of goodbye to them. And I think that they really all appreciated the effort that went into that, but also I think it was just great for people from a distance to see people again, because that was in the May timeframe coming out of the stay-at-home order initially. So that was a really fun project that took a lot of time when you're individually driving out to 20 different addresses all over the local area. A few other summer projects wanted to mention just briefly. We have spent extensive time training our new leadership. We have an amazing group of new individuals coming in, and they have been so eager to learn. So it's just been really, really fun getting to know them. But one of the things that I wanted to make sure that they had early on, and they all were eager to do that, was to get training on their social media, on their Skylar, and just other communication tools that they had. Kind of given the unknowns and surprises that COVID-19 keeps throwing our ways, we wanted to make sure that they had access to their communication tools and that they got comfortable with them as early as possible. So they have all been really wonderful in that and came in throughout the summer to get trained on that. A couple website analytics that I just wanted to mention that I thought was interesting. We have had 671 actions on our district website already, and that is the number of times that just between Sean and myself within the communication department have updated and added new content to the website already. So we have been busy this summer and anticipate that many more changes in that number to grow as we prepare to launch the new school year plans in the coming weeks. One other point that I wanted to make, there's a couple of references from June 2019 to June 2020. And I know that's in your guys' packet, so don't need to read the numbers out loud there, but I just thought that those were some interesting comparisons and show that I think given what COVID-19 kind of brought on to all of us last year, that people were now coming to the source for information. They were looking for it and they wanted to be engaged and wanted content. So I think that we've had some good numbers growing with website traffic in the last year. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention, our next, I would say, month and foreseeable future will be focused on supporting the Return to Learn plan and making sure our families have the information that they need for the school year plans. We've already sent 2 updates out since June 30th and getting our families, and there has been significant questions as I get it, as a parent, there is a lot of anxiety over what the school year may bring. So we've spent significant time answering questions anywhere we've seen them on social media, making sure people have the answers that they need. So we are preparing to work collaboratively with our other departments and get that communication out in the next week or so. So with that, we'll I think grace and flexibility will remain the name of the game this year in our words, and we will be looking to communicate school year plans soon and get all questions answered from families and staff. With that, I will stand for any questions.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Katie? Tina?
Katie, I know I tell you this every time you give a report, I think, and probably several times in between, but I really appreciate everything you do. You know, you're a 2-man crew and you guys do a lot that we don't even see. You guys do a lot of behind the scenes. I appreciate all the hard work you guys did. I did not get to attend the Pleasant View, but I hear it went over very well. So thank you for all your hard work on that. And also just want to give you a shout out, because I know if I've been on social media or whatever, and I've seen something on there and I send it to you, you're always right on it. So I really do appreciate the initiative that you take. I know it's a lot of long hours and a lot of hard work, but it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you.
Thank you.
A second.
Okay. Nope. Okay, we got a second. All those, no. Any other questions or comments? Okay, yeah, Katie, I'll echo what Tina and Mark seconded there. You guys do an awful lot, especially right now with what's going on. I mean, I can only imagine the questions you get. I see them on social media. I see you guys quickly clarify and get the correct information out there. So definitely helpful. And so thanks for all you guys do in their communication.
Thank you.
All right, next up under reports, item 6B is our update on summer programming with Heather Bohady.
Yes, good evening again. Heather Bohady, Superintendent tonight. As with previous agendas, we're providing every meeting an update regarding our summer programming. This summer, we are offering extended school year with Latchkey, Team Prime Time. So we're going to give those supervisors an opportunity to provide you firsthand updates. So we'll start with Latchkey and ESY with Becky Mader.
All right, Becky Mader, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources. I'm going to just talk for just a minute about Latchkey and how things are going. Things are rolling along smoothly at Latchkey. They have the desks for the students all set up 6 feet apart. The students and staff are wearing masks in the hallways, the bathrooms, and when they're playing with or near other students or other individuals at Latchkey. The groups do not intermingle either when they're inside the building or when they're out at the playground. Those rotations have been made so that the groups are not crossing or intermingling with each other. The bathrooms are disinfected after each use, and Latchkey staff has been working closely with the custodial staff to make sure that they have enough disinfectant there at Latchkey. So, so far with the summer Latchkey program, that is rolling along just fine. Next, I'll talk a little bit about extended school year. They're finishing up their last week of classes this week. Today was the first day of the last week of extended school year. So they'll go today through Thursday, and everything is rolling along smoothly there as well. They're wearing the masks as outlined in the mandate, and all of the students and staff are working towards their goals and doing great. I will stand for any questions about either of those programs if anybody has any for that.
Okay, were there any questions or comments for Becky? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Dr. Holly Putnam Jackson. She will talk about the Team Primetime program going on.
Okay, we have started on our second session of Team Primetime at Oak Lawn Elementary. We also have students during Team Primetime that are attending and in small groups with separate classrooms. And that we have DRC instructors as well as tutors that are doing academic activities as well as crafts and games for the students. We are disinfecting classrooms. Students are wearing masks and doing some of their temperature checks and those kinds of things upon entry. They are having a good time this summer. I was out there and saw some of their handiwork in their different rooms. And it's amazing, you know, how resilient our students and staff are and how they really get together and work collaboratively together to learn. So Team Primetime has continued on in a small group manner, and we are always excited to see our students continue to grow and learn and have opportunities to do so throughout the summer months. I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Okay, were there any questions or comments? I'm not seeing any. Thank you.
Thank you.
A couple other updates for summer and really our programming and looking as we move forward. So a few things. We are soon to come out with a ribbon cutting date for Stone Creek Elementary. On our planning for that, we are really definitely keeping in mind with the recent guidance that could and will change the format that we had originally planned, since it limits events to 45 individuals. But we also know we want to give our community and public an opportunity to get a glimpse of the building before we start the year. So we're working and planning, and there's a group that is doing that, and we hope to have information out soon. The other piece that we're keeping at the forefront, working with Mr. Hamlin at the high school, is graduation. We are keeping a close eye on that again with events and what that looks like. And our plan right now is to bring that to the August 3rd meeting about whatever the final decision is. We know right now it would not meet the guidelines to be able to have that, but we still remain hopeful. And I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Okay, were there any questions or comments overall on any of this? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Thank you for the update. Okay, next up under discussion, we have item 7A, job descriptions with Becky Mader.
All right, good evening again. I have created a job description for the position of Certified Orientation and Mobility Specialist. So this job description aligns with the position. It's been reviewed by our Director of Special Services, Nikki Seeley, by myself and by KASB. We have in the past contracted with other districts in order to provide these services for our students. If someone else would have hired for this position, we would contract to receive those services through them. So we would like to post this position, and then we in turn would contract with other districts in order to meet the needs of their students once the needs in our district have been met. So we're presenting this for discussion at this board meeting and would plan to ask for approval at the July 20th, 2020 Board of Education meeting.
Okay, were there any questions or comments? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Okay, well, we'll see you back next Monday.
Sounds great, thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to our action items for tonight. First up, item 8A is our Director of Alternative Learning Evaluation, Instrument, and Revised Job Description, also with Becky Mader.
Okay, an evaluation tool was developed for the Director of Alternative Learning position. This evaluation rubric aligns with the job description for the position, and it has been reviewed by our superintendent, our Director of Alternative Learning, Luann Sparks, myself, and also KASB. We also made a few minor revisions to the job description to more closely match the responsibilities and our visions for this position. So this was presented at the last board meeting for discussion, and we would ask for approval tonight.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Tina and a second from Matthew. All those in favor? I see 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, item 8B is our district organizational chart with Heather Bahati.
Yes, at the last Board of Education meeting, we presented updates to our district organizational chart as included in your board packet, and tonight we'd request your approval.
I
So
make a
moved.
motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we do have a motion by Andy and a second by Matthew. All those in favor? 6-0. Next up, item 8C is the foreign exchange students program with Heather Bahati.
Yes, one of the policies we have JQKA, which is foreign exchange students. It is being recommended, this would be for 1 year only, that we would not accept students, exchange students. However, in the spring, if the situation with COVID-19 has resolved, then we would request your approval to allow applications for the 2021-2022 school year.
I'd move to approve.
Okay, I'll second that. So I had one question. When we come back to approve that, will that be sometime in the spring then for application purposes? I'm just curious on timelines so we wouldn't miss out on.
Right now, we would request, unless you'd like us to bring it back, that long as things, we are very hopeful that we will have a vaccine by then and things will be changed. But we would come back if for some reason there is not a change. They usually get those applications, how the policy is around later in that spring time by May timeframe.
Okay, so this just ends and then we're back to normal as far as the program goes, unless we need to extend. Okay, all right. So we have a motion by Tina, I believe, and a second by myself. So all those in favor? 6-0.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Okay, next up, item 8D is our Board of Education vacancy appointment with myself. So once again, to all 7 that applied, thank you. I mean, that's a huge turnout response. I didn't expect to see that many, and everybody had great priorities and great answers. So thank you for all that. At this time, I'm going to kind of open up the floor and let other board members, if they have any comments or things they need to say, we'll go ahead and we'll start that route. Tina.
I'd like to say also thank you for everybody who applied. I know it's not an easy position to apply and make that commitment to decide that this is something that you would like to do. That being said, I would like to go ahead and make a motion, and I would like to make a motion to approve Robin Folkerts to fill the vacated position.
I'll second that.
Okay, so I didn't hear what the motion was, Tina. Sorry, my computer lost internet right when you made it. So what was the motion?
I made the motion to approve Robin Folkerts to fulfill the seat.
And did we got a second on that? Was that you, Mark?
It was, yeah.
Okay, so we do have a motion by Tina and a second by Mark to appoint Robin to the unexpired term for this Board of Education vacancy. So now we'll take a vote on that. All those in favor to appoint Robin? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like 5-1. Okay, everybody. Thank you for coming out. Robin was appointed via the 5-1 vote. And now we are going to go on to our executive session as our last item on our agenda. So I'm going to move that the board go into executive session for the purposes of discussing matters relating to employer-employee negotiations, whether or not in consultation with the representatives or representatives of the body or agency to protect the district's right to confidentiality of its negotiating position and the public interest for 50 minutes. The executive session will include all those board members present: Heather Bahati, Becky Mader, Dr. Holly Putnam Jackson, and John Regier. The open meeting will resume here in the boardroom at
8:12.
8:12. So So we need a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Tina. All those in favor? 6-0. Okay, board members, you need to log out and log into the other Zoom, and then we'll be back to this one shortly.
How much time did we have, Andy? 5 minutes, or Justin? 5 minutes?
You have yes, 5 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I'll move to extend 15 minutes.
I'll second.
Here we go. 1, 2. Everybody over here. Okay. Okay, we got a motion and a second to extend. All those in favor to extend 15 minutes. 6-0. All right, so back over.